in our individual meetings at the end of the year, I always say this. I say, hey, we both got a job to do here. My job is to recruit somebody better than you. Your job is to work hard enough and get better enough that I can't do that. And if we both do our jobs, we're going to have one heck of a good time here.
Welcome back to another episode of Significant Coaching. I'm your host, Matt Rogers. Today's episode is a special one, and I mean that from the heart. Coach Chris Bunch and I started our college coaching journeys nearly 25 years ago in the St. Louis Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, the SLIAC. Coach Bunch was at Webster University, where he's been for the last 24 years, and I was at Maryville University of St. Louis. Our teams had some epic battles over the years, but what I remember most is the mutual respect we had for each other, our programs, and the way we approached the game. This conversation, it's personal, it's joyful, and honestly, it's a little selfish because you'll hear the pure joy in my voice getting to talk coaching and hoops with one of my great friends in the world of college sports. If you could pick someone to have in your corner, whether it's a friend or a big brother, Chris Bunch is that guy. Kind, loyal, generous, and on top of that, one of the best leaders of young men and the sharpest tacticians of basketball I know. Chris also played a big role in my book, Significant Recruiting, writing the coach's perspective for Chapter 8. I'm so thankful for his wisdom, his generosity, and his belief in helping young people navigate this world the right way. So settle in. You're about to hear from a man who not only knows how to win on the court, but who's made a lasting impact for hundreds of young people off the court. Let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Coach Chris Bunch. Coach Bunch, it's always great to see you. I miss our conversations a ton, and it's great following your team. I want to talk about small college basketball with you.
Okay.
Where's it at? 25 years ago, we started in the SLIAC together. Where is Division III basketball at today? What's changed in 25 years?
I think, Ollie, you asked me this. Last week, I was at the Tennessee Basketball Coaches Association at a team camp in Nashville, and I went and saw Raul Placeres, who was the guy that replaced Randy Lambert in Maryville College, where I was at before I came here 24 years ago. And he and I were talking, we were just talking about that very thing. It has changed a lot. Our league has changed a lot. I don't sometimes think about it because I'm in it. And so I'm just doing it. But like other people will say, Mike Senior, who's started helping me again the last couple of years and was helping me my first 9 years when I was at Maryville here in St. Louis, he talks about our league and how different it is, how much more athletic it is, how much more he thinks it's better. And I don't necessarily think the players, all these guys that I coached 20 years ago couldn't play, and now my players are better. I don't know if that's the case, but it's different. The style of play is different. Obviously, Greenville being our league and running the system has changed. People have had to counterpunch to try and to be able to play them. And I think just the whole analytics, everybody's got access to analytics now. I can pull up stuff on Synergy and see all this stuff more than I don't use it.
Yeah, definitely.
It has changed. Now everybody's shooting, get to the rim or shoot threes and cut out the mid-range and all of that. And so it has changed, I think. Even it has trickled down to our level, that aspect of it. I do think maybe the biggest change I've seen in the last 2, 3, 4 years is the difference in who people are recruiting. For example, and I was talking about that with Coach Placeres at Maryville College last weekend. He said, I said, I used to know who to go after. I'd go to a U tournament or a high school team camp, and you'd watch a game, and this guy would be scoring 27, and you'd be like, yeah, I know I can't get that guy. What about this guy or this guy? And you're trying to figure out who was good enough to help you, but wasn't so good that all the scholarship people would be all over him. Now, I don't know if I know many times who that is, because the Division I and Division II schools aren't recruiting high school kids other than the creme de la creme of high school kids. And so I'm seeing more kids that I thought 5, 10 years ago, I can't get that kid. And now maybe I can get that kid because he doesn't have as much stuff going on. I think that has changed a little bit too. I think it's tougher for high school kids because they're sitting around waiting for that scholarship offer to come, and they're not recruiting an 18-year-old. They're wanting a 22-year-old or a bounce back from a Division I if they're Division II, or a Division II if they're Division III or NAI or whatever. And then there's the JUCO aspect of it. I think it has narrowed what high school kids, their avenues have narrowed a little bit. It's probably been good for transfers as far as, because everybody wants a 21-year-old now. They don't want a 17 or 18-year-old. It's that part of it, I think, has definitely changed.
It's the math that doesn't add up for me. Okay, so there's 2,000 young men in the portal. How is it that there's no room for high school kids? I mean, is it just revolving chairs, and you're sitting in this chair one day and then you're in another chair and that guy's taking the kid that was in your chair? It just seems like there should be more room for these high school kids to find their way. But every D2, every NAI, every D1 coach tells me we're not going to recruit high school kids until we know we've gotten out of the portal what we need. And then it's been flipped upside down from where it was 20 years ago. We used to recruit all of our high school kids 2 years in advance, get our commitments. And if we knew we were going to need a transfer, we'd start looking for a JUCO kid. We'd start looking for that transfer. Isn't that wild?
It's very different. Like I say, sometimes I go sit in, like last weekend, I'm sitting watching 6 courts. And I'm just like, at one point, I went home and told my wife, I said, she said, how was it? I said, at one point, I was just bewildered because I'm looking and I'm like, oh, no, can I get that kid? Can I not get that kid? Do I want to contact 20 people here? Do I want to contact 100 people? I said, it was a little tougher for me this time because I don't know, maybe I can get that guy. And I think the thing is that no one understands about the portal, and I'm sure you do because you do all the recruiting stuff nowadays. But I read something the other day where 30% of people in the portal get another opportunity somewhere.
3 out of 10.
30%. And I had 2 guys last year that were seniors, and they wanted to go play one more. They had one more year to play. Yeah, and they didn't want to do grad school here because it was going to be too expensive. So they were going to go back to where they were from. And they entered the portal. And I think they were a little disappointed that they didn't get more heat than they got. And I think that's the reality. I think a lot of people think, I'll just get somebody's unhappy at school X, I'll just go to enter the portal and everybody's just going to start calling me. Right. They're not. And I think for the majority of people, they're sitting around, and then in June and July, they're starting to call people just like people always did. Oh, I don't have anybody recruiting me. But I think that's the big misconception about the portal is everybody enters the portal and finds a place. There's a small chance that you might find a place. Then the question is, do you find a place that is what you are looking for? And I think the percentage probably is even smaller than 30%. So it's a crapshoot. And I don't know that kids playing on rosters now completely understand that.
I think we'll go back to what we started with. I watch your teams play now. I watch you play against Georgia Greenville. I watch you play against Spalding. I'll watch you play against Fontbonne. And I don't ever remember us having those type of athletes. And the guys that I'm seeing in the SLAC now, that you might have had a Connie, 1'6'7" kid that landed in the lap. I might have got a 6'7" kid that landed in my lap. But it was really rare if we had 3 guys bigger than 6'4" on the floor at one time. Now I'm watching these games and I'm going, am I watching the right teams? This looks like a D2 game. This looks like a high-level NAI game or a Division I JUCO game. Do you think the kids and the families are figuring that out and they're saying, we need to go where we can be appreciated and play?
I do think there's a little bit of, and I said this when I first came to St. Louis, and I still think that I battle this sometimes. When I was in Maryville College in Tennessee, they were good. and they would go play Division II teams in that area and win, or play them within a 2 or 3 point game.
Right.
They were like one of the best programs, small college programs in East Tennessee. So when we would go to Knoxville and recruit kids, there wasn't really that's Division III. When I came here 24 years ago, that hit me like a pie in the face. I would go out and people would be like, I'd say, do you have any? Talking to high school coach, they'd say, I've got a guy that can help you. And he would want to give me their second guy off the bench. Here's your for you. Right. Guy played at Webster or Fontbonne or Maryville in the late 80s, early 90s when they were just getting started. And it was like, oh, yeah, the perception still, I think, with a certain percentage of people in St. Louis is, oh, that's Division III. Anybody can go there and play.
Right.
I have coaches tell me, well, my kid's way better than Division III. And I want to go, come watch us play Illinois Wesleyan or Washington. And I want you to tell me, when you think that kid is better than Division III, I'm talking about this, but I'm talking about Illinois Wesleyan, Washington. Watch us play WashU, and then you tell me if you think your kid is so much better than Division III. And I have a lot of coaches, high school coaches, come with their kids and watch us play Fontbonne or Spalding or Greenville, and they're like, man, you guys are pretty good. I didn't realize it was that good. And I'm like, every level has got people that can play. Every team has got a bunch of some high school's best player playing on their team. And I do think that has changed a little bit, but I still think that perception might be out there some with Division III. But I do think that is changing because it's like, I got to go where I can. The other question I get for recruits, and I got a ton for this year, where do you see me fitting in? And that's a very tough question for me this year because as Fontbonne closed at the end of this year.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a couple of guys from Fontbonne come play for us. A couple other guys coming from some people coming from different places. And I probably have more transfers than I've ever had. It's just a freakish year that's happening. But, and Mike Senior told me years ago, I'm too honest in my recruiting. He goes, man, you tell people too much sometimes. I've had to talk to these kids about, look, this is going to be a competitive. Do I think you can play in Webster University someday? Yes. Or I wouldn't be recruiting you. Do I think you could be a good player here and have a great career? Yes. Are you going to come in here and play 20 minutes right away next year? You better be ready to compete for it because it's going to be a very competitive situation. And I don't make any promises to high school kids. And sometimes that's what they want to hear is, I want to go somewhere where I can play right away. And I almost sometimes want to go, where is that exactly?
Yeah.
Now, certain kids can, but just the average kid, I almost sometimes want to go, where do you think that is? Because all these places, you're going to have to earn playing time no matter where you go. And I've always had freshmen playing for me. But it may sometimes not be the freshman that I thought was going to play for me. I thought
That's right.
going to play for me. Now it's this guy playing for me instead, but it's a very competitive, it's gotten much tougher, I think, for high school students.
Would you prefer the question were asked to you, do you see me having a chance to compete for playing time next year?
Yes. Yes.
That's easier to answer, isn't it?
That's easier to answer. And I try and deliver that in a way that's not, I probably harder right than I deliver it with the people sitting in the room. But it is, if I didn't think you could play, I wouldn't have you sitting here in this office right now. You know what I mean? It's funny. I just think you can play. I do see you playing here someday. Will you play next year? You might, but you're going to earn it if you do. And it's going to be competitive. And great quote from our baseball coach. He says this to his kids all the time. I say it to my guys now. I never used to say this, but I say it straight to them. I used to say this in a different way. Now this is the best way I know to say it. In our individual meetings at the end of the year, I always say this. I say, hey, we both got a job to do here. My job is to recruit somebody better than you here. Your job is to work hard enough and get better enough and develop through weight training, working on your game in the gym, playing 5-on-5 in the off season. It's your job to be good enough that I can't do that. And if we both do our jobs, we're going to have one heck of a good time here. And I think sometimes the kids' perception is that like high school, next year it's my turn. And I'm like, not necessarily. It might be, and it might not be. And so I do think that the toughest question for me to ask, and I just sit and wait for it every visit I have, is where do you see me fitting in next year? I will go somewhere where I care. Or mom or dad will say, he wants to go somewhere where he can play right away. I have told kids that have emailed me, I've talked to some kids on the phone, and I've just told them, hey, look, I got 25 guys next year, and we've got a ton of guards. And if you want to come here, I maybe would be interested, but you need to understand up front, nothing is promised here, and there's going to be 15 other guards in this program trying to keep you from playing.
Yeah.
And I can't promise you anything. And a lot of kids have said, Coach, I appreciate your honesty. I want to save you some time, because if you're looking for someplace, if you need to hear, and I've probably lost a lot of guys in 25 years recruiting this, if you need to hear me say, yes, come here next year and you'll play, I am just not going to say that.
Yeah.
Because that is something I cannot guarantee.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how good you are. No, it doesn't matter if you were All-State and you're 6'4" and shot 38% for the football. We're pretty sure you're going to come in here and fail at some point. You're probably going to fail in the first semester, if not first and second semester. It's almost like we need to tell a kid, if you do come in and you're playing 15 minutes a game, either something went dramatically wrong or we're really good this year. Because we're already 10. And if you're getting that many minutes, right, we're probably pretty good. Or we got a bunch of injuries and something went wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And I had 3 guys this year played as sophomores. 3 of my top 6 were sophomores this year. And they all played. They all started at different times. Had a big kid that just graduated that was the all-time leading shot blocker in conference history. He was the 3rd all-time leading rebounder in conference history. He's the all-time leading shot blocker and rebounder here at Webster. He scored 1,000 points. He was 3 years in a row the defensive player of the year in the conference. And the guy playing behind him was a sophomore that was 6'6" or 7. And when Carl got hurt for 3 games in January when the conference is on, Justin scored 20 points in every one of those 3 games. And then Carl came back and had to go, all right, he went back to playing. And so he averaged 9 or 10 points a game, essentially coming off the bench, although he did start stuff. I had another sophomore that averaged 13.5 points a game as a sophomore. I had another guard that started off and on throughout the year, but at 3 different games this year scored 20 points in a game because he's a good perimeter shooter. And he just had some games he got hot outside and made some threes. But he's a good player. Those 3, as I tell everyone coming in this, those 3 guys as freshmen, all dressed on the varsity for me. The big kid played some because we didn't have any other big guys. The other 2 hardly played at all. And yet they were 2 of my top 6 this year and really good and will be even better in the next couple of years, I believe. And so there's opportunities for you to play early in your career. It might not be the first game of your freshman year. And everybody has to go through that, figuring out what college is about, figuring out a new place, figuring out your new teammates, figuring out your new coach and what are his hot buttons and what does he value and emphasize. Your coaches having time to watch you every day in and out and see what your work ethic is and what your attitude is and see what your ability to perceive and learn the system it takes time. My dad told me one time years ago, I wanted it to all happen for me right away when I was coaching in high school. And I'm complaining about how it wasn't coming together. And my dad, he had this country way of saying things at the time you think, what are you talking about? But then I'm thinking about it and go, and he turned and looked at me and said, son, you can want a flower to open up and bloom, but if you just try and grab the petals and pull it open, you're just going to pull the petals off of it and just kill it.
Yeah.
He goes, it'll bloom when it's ready to bloom. And I was like, what are you doing? I don't want to hear that crap.
Yeah.
But that's very true. It takes time for it to all come together. And I think sometimes that's what, when I played, You were in 7th grade, you watched the 8th graders play.
That's right.
You played when you were in 8th grade. And then you went to high school, and when you were a freshman, if your program was good, you watched the sophomores play on the JV. And then when you were a sophomore, you started on the JV, and maybe you dressed varsity. And then your junior year, you were on the varsity. And if you were good, you played.
Yep.
Then I went to college. I went to a really good program in college. And my first year, I played 9 games out of 35.
Yep, that's all of it.
It was all into the game. We're up 30, get out there for 2 minutes. And then my sophomore year, I started getting to play again. I'm surprised sometimes now because I think a lot of kids for whatever reason, they got to play AU. You go play AU in the summer, everybody gets to play. Everybody gets to start at some point. Everybody's playing over half the game or more. So they want to go, they just think that every stop along the way, I get to play. And I do think sometimes that's tough because when I was growing up and I went to high school or I went to college my freshman year and I didn't play, like, yeah, these guys are good. I'm the worst guy in here. I don't need to be. But I was coming from a different mindset at that time. And so I think sometimes it's, can you shift your thinking a little bit? And I have talks with kids once they're here a while about, yes, I've told kids before, yes, you can transfer. You're going to start this process all over again if you transfer.
Yeah.
A kid that I like, a kid that I really, kids that come into, they're going to transfer you. Okay. But I've had other kids where I'm like, if you do this, you're going to start this whole process over and you have 1 year less, to figure it out than you had when you came here and started this process. Yeah. I've seen a lot of kids that would have done well if they would have just hung in. And I've told a lot of people this. I have not had a lot of kids leave here and go somewhere else and flourish. Yeah. It's just different if you're Division I, maybe, but I said, I've not had a lot of kids come here and not play and go somewhere else and flourish. Yeah. Most of the time, that's the end.
I don't see it at any level. Even these transfers, it's so rare. We hear about those kids that get drafted, that transferred and got drafted.
Absolutely.
There's another 100 that transferred and were the 6th man and got 12 minutes a game. So it's all frustrating. And it's a big part of why I continue to do this podcast. I want families and kids to hear college coaches have this conversation. I want these families to understand this is how we talk to each other. This is how we think.
Right.
And we're smart about it. We don't want to lose. We like our job. If we go 7-18 a couple years in a row, they're looking for another coach. So if you think I'm not playing you for political reasons or emotional reasons, or it's something about our relationship, you're crazy. If you're in my roster and you can help me win, I'm finding a spot for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you're not playing, it means there's somebody else that's making us better than you.
Absolutely. Right? Or at the very least, Matt, the coach, we're all human. I look at guys and be like, man, I realized later I should have played this guy over here already. Well, we make mistakes too. But I think it's a mistake. I tell my guys this sometimes, that we finally have the discussion where I'm in the office and they came in 2 times to talk to me about playing time, and we've talked about what they can do. And finally I get to the point where, look, I just don't think you give us the best chance to win.
That's right.
And you have to make me see that you give us the best chance to win every day in practice, in a junior varsity or reserve game. You need to show me. I said, a lot of guys don't want to play a reserve game or JV game. And you go to a JV game and score 25. I go, maybe I need to rethink this.
Yeah.
Playing a JV game and score 2 points in 25 minutes, all you did was reaffirm that you're probably not you're not going to impact the game enough. And so I will finally just get to the point where I say, this is where I'm at. And I know this stinks for you. And this is hard for you. And I understand that. But I have to make the best decision I can. And maybe I'm making the wrong one. But I have to go with what I think is the best decision. And it's not personal. And you're going to have to either be okay with that and continue to work, or I'll help you find somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to go somewhere else, I'll help you find somewhere else if I can. It's not personal. 95% of the time, it's not personal. The coach didn't like me. No. And in those cases where the coach didn't like you, you probably weren't behaving in a very likable manner.
That's right.
I finally will just get to that point to where I may be making a mistake. I will admit that. But this is where I'm at. And you're going to have to be. I tell our guys this all the time, and I'll say it 50 times again next year. I'll say, as a player, you have the opportunity to be egocentric. And I don't mean egotistical, egocentric. You're looking around and going, how is all this affecting me? Am I happy? Am I getting what I want out of this? And I'll say, you have to understand as any coach, but especially the head coach, I never get to think like that.
Yes.
I have a guy, and gosh, he's the best guy we've got. I'm just speaking hypothetically here. You have a kid, and he's great attitude, works hard. He's got he stands on the bench and stands up and claps every time somebody does something. He's a leader. You love him. If you had a daughter, you'd want him to marry her, but he doesn't give you the best chance to win. I can't go, man, I really love this guy. I'm going to play him instead. If I'm being honest to myself and the team and trying to do what's best for everyone, I have to not play that guy.
Yeah.
And it's a heartbreaker. It's a heart wrencher for the coach as well as the player. And I said, they need to understand that a coach if he's doing it the right way, he never gets to look at it from that perspective. I'm going to do what I would like to do. That's not necessarily have to do what I think is the best for the collective. And a lot of times what's best for the collective really stinks for this one guy. And I can't help that. I'm human. This is an imperfect world. I can't make it work for everybody. 25 guys, I can't make it work for everybody. I have to do the very best I can. I tell everybody, I'm going to treat you as good as I can, as well as I can. I'm going to give everybody the same opportunity. I'm not going to let some guys eat and not let the guys eat. I'm not going to give some guys travel suits and backpacks and not give everybody a travel suit and a backpack. If you come in with a problem in class or you have a problem with your financial aid, I'm going to sit down with you and I'm going to call whoever I need to call to try and make that better for you. If you get sick at night, whether you play for me or not, I'm going to come pick you up and take you to the emergency room and sit there with you. All of those things. I'm going to do all of that stuff. Everybody I've got. But when it comes to the playing time, that's the one area that I can't spread it out to all 20, 25 guys. At that point, I have to make some tough choices.
But that is the reason I would want my son to play for you. That is the reason that if I'm a parent or I'm talking to a parent, it's why I would say, go talk to Chris Bunch, because you're going to get the truth. You're going to get it direct. He's going to take care of you. He's going to care about you. He's going to put you before himself. That is the definition of a coach.
I hope.
Yes. And I know Mike would tease you about being too honest with recruiting, but at the end of the day, you don't. I never did. I don't want to deal with a problem I'm looking at in a year when I already know it's a problem. I'd rather they know the truth so they go, I don't know if I want to play for him. He's really hard. He's really tough on his guys. Even the guys say he's hard to play for sometimes. He's going to get on you. He's going to love you, but he's going to kick you in the butt. Whatever that may be. I'd rather they know that up front because I don't want you here. I don't want to have to recruit your position again in a year because we find out 12 months from now we're not a good fit for each other.
I tell guys all the time, I'll say, hey, look, if I lie to you and say, oh, come here, you'll play.
Yeah.
I tell everybody that.
Yeah.
Then when everybody gets here, somebody's not playing. And I said, if I lied to you, then you're going to be unhappy. And you're going to sit around and you're going to complain to the other guys in the team. And at some point, some of them are going to start getting unhappy.
Yeah.
And then you're going to call home and you're going to complain to mom and dad. And they're going to be unhappy. And as it progresses, at some point, I get to be unhappy because I lied to you about where I see you. And I said, and at 58 years old, I'm too old for that. I've got 10 more years or 15 more years of coaching. I may not have one more year of coaching. I don't know. But I said, at this age of my life and at this stage of my career, I'm too old for that. You need to know up front, this is where I am. And if you want to be here, then great. I would love to have you here. If not, I understand and whatever.
Yeah. I think we were too old for it when we were in our 20s and 30s. That's retrospect. When you look back 24 years, how have you changed in how you, I'll throw some actions at you, how you run a practice? How's that changed in 24 years? Has it?
Yes, I'm sure it's changed radically in the last year. Like I say, a couple of years ago, Mike was coaching soccer. He got out of soccer, didn't want to be the head coach anymore, didn't want to have all the head coach responsibilities and all that. His boys are starting to play every sport known to mankind. But it's like he's trying to get to all their games. He's not. And then he came to me and said, "Hey, I see you having one of your assistants left. Can I come back and help you?" And I laughed. I said, "Dude, you just retired. What do you mean? You retired a month ago." And he goes, "No, I retired for being the head." And so Mike was able to come back. I've had him the last couple of years. I had another coach in the area, George Little, that has coached a lot of different.
Yeah, I remember George. George was around when I was.
He's helped me the last 2 years. Last year, you remember Cody Bradfish that played for me. Cody was a high school coach, got different, he had a couple of kids, got in a different place in his life. And I had the opportunity last year to hire him. And I hired another guy, Greg Williams, who was a successful high school boys and girls coach for 30 years and had just retired from coaching. And came here and worked a couple of camps for me. And I was like, if you ever want to get in, try the college game again one time, I'd love to have you. I've got all of those guys.
That's amazing.
And so I say all the time to people, maybe have as good a staff as any Division III coach in America. And because they're all older, they've all been head coaches. They all get it. And next year, I think we've got it set up. Lance Thornhill's going to come over here and
wow, that's a Division I staff. You've got 4 Fed coaches,
and not just guys that were head coaches, but guys that have all been successful head coaches. And so we have a lot. In the last year, we've probably had more discussions than I've ever. Not that I didn't have discussions with other assistants. I've had good assistants. I've been blessed ever since I've been here. But probably more discussions about, if you or me, what would you do right here? A bunch or I do this. And it's that part of it I have changed a lot in the last year, but probably over time I did it anyway. Just when you're young, when I was young and first started out in coaching high school, I was blessed / cursed with coaching at a school that the girls' head coach won 90% of the games in his career. He won 4 or 5 state titles. They were runner-up 4 or 5 times, whatever. When my first year as a high school head coach, I went 7-20. He had the number 2 ranked team in the country by USA Today in girls. All 5 of his starting lineup got a D1 scholarship offer that year.
Wow.
And so it was like, here I am coaching, and I got this. But everything I do seems wrong. And everybody's going, you don't do Larry Neal. It was really tough. And yet it was really good because Larry was the first guy to ever be like, let me tell you something. He goes, it is not what you're doing right now. He goes, but he'd say it is the players that you have. Until you get better players, you just have to do as well as you can. And he goes, if you should win 5 games and you win 7, you had a great year.
Yeah.
And he'd say, Chris, I can't do that. If I should win 30 and I win 29, they want to fire me around here. He just laughed. It's hard for me to keep exceeding my own expectation. He goes, but for you starting off, you have to think in lines like that. And as a young coach, I think that's the hardest thing. You want everybody to see you're in charge. You want everybody to think you know what you're doing. You got the answer to everything. And then you get older and you do it a while and you realize, dude, I'm an idiot. I don't know that. I don't know the answer to this. And as you get older, and especially in this past year, I've done home for practice at Chris. How'd it go today? And I said, I went great. And she goes, I think you're having more fun than you've ever had. And I said, hey, I'm having more fun than I've ever had. And some days I probably do the untrained. I just look like Nick Saban. I'm just walking around and they're all doing different skill stations and they're doing half court defensive work on this end. Offensive, Cody's got offensive work on this end or this, and I just jump in the drill and bark a little bit and then step back up and walk around again. I said, well, that guy ain't doing anything. Yes, I'm sitting down with them and we're talking about the planning aspect of it. But I think for a young coach, one of the things you have to learn is that you have to hire good assistants and you have to let them do their thing.
Yeah.
I was fortunate that every coach I ever worked with did that. When I went to Maryville, I remember Randy saying, okay, you got the post, go there and do this, you're going to do some offensive rebounding. And I was like, what drill do you want me to do? And he was like, hey, Butch, you've been a coach for 11 years. You ever done a rebounding drill? I'm like, yeah, good. Go do a couple of them. If it's wrong, I'll step in. And to Mike, I said to every assistant, Cody came in and said, I want to do more shooting in practice. What kind of drills? I went, you're the one that says you do shooting drills in practice every day. I said, do those. If I don't like them, I'll tell you. And he was like, oh, okay. I think that my expectation is, Lance, when we sat down and talked, I was like, dude, I'm not going to try to, you beat me like the last 11 times. I'm not going to try to tell you, oh, yeah, I know, be quiet. I know more than, it's like, there are things that you do that you are better at than I am at those things.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you do those things. And
Yeah.
you be the front man and you be out there in practice teaching the guys this, whatever it is. And you're going to get to do that. Because instead of you tell me and then let me teach it so all the guys know that I'm the one in charge. I said, I think you have to get away from that.
Yeah.
If you want your staff to enjoy it, if you want everybody to, if you want it to be a good situation, I'll tell them, I'll say, all right, guys, I'll have some of the practice plan done and I'll say, okay, here we are. Employee empowerment segment right here. Greg, you got these guys down here for 2 rounds of 10 minutes. Cody, you got these 2 guys. Do some offense, do some defense. I don't care. You both coached for 30 years or 15 years, whatever. Do something.
Yeah.
You do what you like to do. And I think that has worked for us a lot better.
Good.
Now, granted, I've got all experienced assistants that you can do that.
Yeah.
A young guy, I realize you got to, here's some good for us to do or whatever. But I've got older guys. It is sometimes, hey, stupid, get out of the way and let the field. There's been times we've called a timeout and Cody wanted to run something. I just said, Cody, you tell him. But it's, Coach Bunch isn't even talking to the players in the timeout. Everything doesn't have to come through me. And I think once you get comfortable with that, it makes everything better. I think there's more buy-in from your assistants. I think the players respect your assistants more because, hey, this guy's coaching me too. I think it helps all the way around.
I agree. Yeah.
But then look, it's changed. That has changed. That's probably the main change I've made over the years, is I do a lot more of that than I used to.
I coached high school basketball 2 years ago, and I couldn't find an assistant coach until November 1st. Couldn't find one. And then everybody I hired were the guys that played so little high school basketball, never saw college. They were just good guys. I spent the whole year coaching them.
Yes.
Which made it a real challenge when you have a varsity, a junior varsity, and a freshman team in 2 different gyms. And you're trying to help practice plan and teach them what a 2-3 zone is and how to move in a 2-3 zone. So when you've got coaches, when I had a Gene Myers and you've had a Mike and you've got a Lance coming in, it's so much easier on your soul to enjoy the coaching side of it. You can say, I don't have to be the disciplinarian. I don't have to be the director for 120 minutes every single day.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Or I'm going to go down here and watch the offensive stuff that Cody's doing because we didn't do this very well last night. So I'm going to watch this.
Exactly.
And I don't have to be looking over my shoulder to make sure that they're not down there kicking basketballs off the wall and goofing around. There's good stuff happening on that end, and I don't have to be involved in that. They're getting what they need to get. And I told somebody at the end of this year, I said, it wasn't my most successful year, wins and losses and finish and all of that. But it was probably my favorite year of coaching, just in my mental health, my happiness and enjoyment.
Yeah.
After game.
That makes me so happy for you.
And it was a great year. I'm hoping this year will be better.
It sounds like your freshman sophomores coming back are just loaded.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I was so excited for you and for them. And knowing you the way I do, I would imagine last year was probably the most you've been able to have somebody else run a drill and you can grab a kid, pull him out, have a 2-minute conversation, do some teaching on the side, probably more than you've ever been able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Here was the classic thing. Cody, his wife is a nurse, and so sometimes she's got to work. And so they didn't have school one day, and so he had both of his kids, a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Which is not a problem for you. I know that.
I'm already well-versed with Cedar's 3 kids. I've raised his kids. So anyway, Cody would be there, and Selena is crawling around on the floor there in mid-court. And so it comes time for Cody to get in and do his 5-on-5 segment, offensive segment. And so he's holding her, and I said, here, give me that baby. And so I'm like, and they know me, his kids know me. So I'm walking around with Selena, talking to her, and somebody came in and went, what is going on? I mean, I don't know.
That's hog heaven for That is hog heaven for you.
But I was just like, I'm just holding Selena, and we're talking, and I'm watching. And Cody's like, hey, I apologize for that. And I said, you don't have to apologize for that. I said, it's part of it. And so that part of it has been very good.
That's great.
Having a bunch of guys around that I enjoy. Not that I didn't enjoy my other assistants. I've enjoyed all my assistants. But there's just more of them there. I think we get more stuff done in practice.
Absolutely.
They're better than the assistants I had prior. I just have more of them now to break things down.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Coach, man, you have to be willing to let go of some stuff if you want to move forward.
Now I got to convince Karen to move back to St. Louis so I could be your administrative assistant.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to be the ball boy of that bench.
Is Lance coming over and said, good God, but you're going to have 2 rows. You're going to be like the NBA. You're going to have 4 coaches sitting in that second row behind you. I said, I know it is. There's a lot. There's sometimes it's a lot of moving parts. Now, they're not in every practice because Mike's got his job that he's doing.
Yeah.
Everybody teaches except the retired coach. So there's times if we go to practice at 2, it's just me and Greg because Mike's at work and the other 3 guys are teaching. So sometimes it's just me and Greg. And then, hey, I've done that. I've high school and sometimes here at Webster. I've been one coach and had 25 dudes in the gym, and I'll have to do that too. I can do. You do what you got to do, but it's that part of it. I've changed kind of the practice schedule. We go late more just so I can have all my guys there because it's better situation, all that. It's been very good.
Coach, this has been awesome. I could talk to you for hours. I miss you so much, and it's always a joy for me. Let's do some coaching to younger coaches.
Okay.
Real quick.
Okay.
Piece of advice that you've learned over the years or somebody gave to you that you think every young coach should really embrace.
Couple things. Be yourself. I think you'll know this. You did this too. I'm sure we all do. Every good coach is a thief. If I see something I like, I go, oh, I'm going to do that.
That's right.
Before I do that, I got to make sure I've got the people in place that can do that before I try and do it. Or I'll see some coach and his coach. And then here again, getting back to when coaching in high school, the girls coach was the most intense human being I ever met in my life to this day. And I tried to, and everybody just thought that was the way you won. You were just a disciplinarian and you were hard on the kids and just chewing the ears off the side of somebody's head every time they were. Larry was intense all the time, never changed. And I would try and do that. And I would make that about 2 days. And I was just exhausted. I would go home and just be like, I can't do this. I mean, how does he do this? I can't. And I had to learn over time, you got to be yourself. And I used to tell Mike that when he first started coaching, I said, Mike, don't try and be me. Don't yell because I yell or laugh because I laugh or whatever. I said, you got to respond to situations the way you would respond to situations. And I said, you have to be, I think you have to be real with yourself because kids, people in general, but I think sometimes especially kids, they see a fake coming a mile away. If you're trying to be something that you're not, man, they pick up on that quick. I said, you have to be yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that young coaches, they want to be like, I want to be like Brad Stevens, or I want to be like Coach K, or I want to be like Rick Barnes or whoever. It's be yourself. Be who you are, because you'll be much happier with and you're much more comfortable with yourself than you are with anybody else. So you need to try and be yourself. And the other thing is too, I think this is like I've mentioned in the last few years, don't be afraid to hire assistants that know more than you know about a certain area. I'm afraid he's going to come in here and he's going to know more than I know, and the kids are going to think he needs to be the head coach, and there's all of that stuff. If you want to have a really good team and you don't know anything about zone defense, hire somebody that knows something about zone defense and let them teach that. If you are a great defensive coach, but your offense is, you're never really good and you're not comfortable with that, hire an assistant coach that's a good offensive guy, because that makes your program more well-rounded and makes it better. And it's not a sign of weakness on your part. It's a sign of understanding. It's really a sign of strength that you are comfortable enough in your own skin that you can allow somebody else to have some front time, and it's okay. I think there's things you got to maneuver there, but I do think that would be pieces of advice that I would give somebody starting.
I think it's great advice for a 50-year-old CEO, president, manager, leader, administrator too. It's hire people that are smarter than you. Hire people that
Absolutely.
don't hire people that are lesser than you, or you're worried that are going to shine more than you. So I love that advice. You and I were both like this, but it would drive me crazy. I'd watch 5 of your games. We were going to be the 6th team you were going to play, and you'd play frickin' man-to-man for 40 minutes, and we'd show up, and you'd sit in a 1-2-2 all night long, and we hadn't seen it all year. Okay? Drive me crazy. Okay? I was like, we haven't seen him play this once, and he's throwing this darn 1-2-2 at us. And it would take me a half to figure out what I wanted to do and get the boys doing it the way I want. When it comes to X's and O's, what have you learned over the years in terms of telling a young coach how to tackle that strategy they're going to input? What are one or two of those things you're like, this is how and why you put a certain thing in play?
I think you, again, have to be willing to change. You have to be. I see so many coaches, and I've told people before, there's different kinds of coaches in different facets. But one of the things that I have seen a lot of is a coach that does things one way for whatever reason. That worked. And so I'm going to always do that because that worked when we went to the state tournament. So that's what I'm doing. Or another kind of coach that I like North Carolina, or let's say I like, pick somebody. I like Bob Huggins. I like West Virginia. So we're going to press just because Bob Huggins presses and he's successful with that. Again, that's what I'm doing, regardless. I think you have to be willing to, hey, this ain't working. Let's try something else. I think you need to have two things. And so there for a long time, we played mostly man, then we played a little zone. Then I got Chris O'Connell helped me about my 10th or 11th year in, and he was a big Syracuse 2-3 zone guy. And I went almost exclusively for about 7 years, 2-3 zone all the time. We just played man in emergencies. And then I went back to a man base, but we play 2-3 zone in certain situations when we feel like, and it's odd. I play 2-3 zone sometimes when we play a team that shoots a lot of threes, because it's easier to spread out wide in a Syracuse style 2-3 zone and cover shooters. When you play man, somebody that shoots threes all the time, they've got 30 sets designed to get somebody open against a man-to-man for a three. When you play zone, now they're just having to pass it around and try and get the shots that way.
Yeah.
So there are times I've played this year, we played man for 40 minutes. There's times we started out in man, and 2 minutes into the game, we're down 8-0, and we went zone. We played zone for 38 minutes. I think you have to be willing to experiment and say, hey, I'll tell you this, Matt, as you get older, that's harder to do. I look back when I was coaching, that first team. We went 7-20. In that summer, we went to 3 team camps, and we went 1-30 in team camp that year. I didn't think I was going to win a game. And we beat a team that was ranked in the state, that was in our county, a county rival, and we upset them. And I said to one of the guys I knew, I said, do I look like I've shown them anything? He said, how many games you won this year? I said, 3. He goes, they don't need to make you coach of the year. They need to make you coach of the century. He goes, you should win a game with the team that you. It's the greatest compliment I've heard. It's not. I was like, thanks, Dave. I needed that. I appreciate that. But it is, I would do things then because things weren't working. I'd say, well, let's try this.
That's right.
And sometimes it worked.
That's right.
And as you get older and you've coached for 30 some odd years, you go, no, I ain't doing that. That's crazy. And sometimes maybe you dismiss things that would work if you were just brave enough to, but if you do it and it doesn't work, everybody in the gym thinks you're the biggest idiot that ever lived. And so you don't want to take that risk. And I said, I think is one of the things that's been hard for me. Don't be afraid to try things. Again, in the framework of, is this you? Is this what you do? Is this how you do it? Don't be afraid to try things or have a couple of different things in mind. Be able to press if you need to, or be able to switch to a zone if you need to. Don't just do one thing, because you'll play some teams that, man, you're playing right into their wheelhouse when you do whatever it is that you like to do. You got to be able to do something else then.
Yeah, I wrote it's just recently, as in the last year and a half, 2 years, I remember we were playing a team, just 2 dynamic guards, just unbelievable. They played so fast. They were so good with the ball. And we were 2-3 minutes in, and I pulled the team out, and I called timeout, and I said, all right, we're putting in our press. And I could just see my assistant out of the corner of his eye, his heart dropped. We're going to prep these guys. And the kid's back out, and the coach goes, Coach, why are we pressing this team? And I go, you've watched a lot of film on these guys, right? And I go, yeah. He goes, yeah. And I go, have you seen anybody press them this year? And he goes, no. Let's see what happens. And we go on an 8-0 run because they're not used to it. They're not used to being pressed. Sometimes it's just that change.
Yes.
It's showing something different. It slows them down. It makes them think. It makes them frustrated for a little bit, for more than a minute or two. But
right.
Yeah, I love that approach, and I love that about you. And it was always the greatest challenge. I had to prepare for everything for you. I didn't know what you were going to do. You had size, but your guards might kill us. Your guards might score 60 points then. Coach, this has been a lot of fun. I'm going to call a quick timeout, and we'll come back and do 10, 12 minutes of recruiting. I want to get some hard recruiting advice for families. But thanks for doing this. It was a joy.
No problem. I've enjoyed it too. It's always an honor to get to hang out with you for a little while.
What a great conversation with my longtime friend, the head men's basketball coach at Webster University in St. Louis, Coach Chris Bunch. Chris, thank you for your time, your friendship, and your wisdom. I'm so grateful for your impact on the game, the young men you lead, and the coaching community we're both proud to be a part of. To all you listening, if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to connect. Please visit CoachMattRogers.com to explore all the tools and resources I've created to help coaches, student athletes, and families navigate recruiting, leadership, and the journey to college athletics. From my books, Significant Coaching and the Softball Recruits Journal. And don't forget about one-on-one consulting sessions that you can do with me, whether you're a family, a coach, an administrator, a college president. I've built these tools to help you lead with clarity and confidence. And if you're a part of a school, club, or organization looking to bring in a speaker for your next event, I'd be honored to join you, whether it's about college recruiting, leadership development, or building strong teams and strong kids with lasting impact. I tailor every message to meet your audience where they are. Thanks again for tuning in to Significant Coaching. Be sure to subscribe and share this episode with a coach or leader who would benefit from it. Until next time, lead with purpose, recruit with intention, and never stop pursuing significance.